This week, prosecutors working on January 6 cases gave us a new update. Nearly 1,500 defendants have now been charged for their roles in the insurrection. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is calling for the members of the January 6 committee to be indicted, and he is promising to pardon the rioters. Well, a new documentary called The Six shows a perspective of 6 people who witnessed the violence firsthand.
Democracy needs a ground to stand on, and that ground is the truth. So we got to tell the truth, if we can handle it.
We are not losing the U.S. Capitol today.
Where's the news at? It's just scary and I'm nervous.
You ready?
Joining us now are the directors of the documentary, The Six, award-winning filmmakers, Andrea Nix Fine and Sean Fine. I have seen this. This is the best documentary I've ever seen. I have never watched prior to this more than 5 minutes of footage from January 6th, and this centers the people. I just want to play this piece from the documentary. A staffer, Erica Lowe, who now works at the White House. At the time, she worked in Congress, and she talked about assuming the worst.
I had to assume the worst. I had to assume these people were armed. You kind of go into survival mode. Like, I remember essentially casing the office, like, what can I use as a weapon? I remember feeling like whatever is in here that is heavy is what I will have to use, you know, if it comes to that.
So, Andrea, when you look at this as a complete scenario, right, from start to finish, and you now have President Trump out here talking about giving basically solace to those insurrectionists by pardoning them and making the case that the January 6th committee members should be indicted. When you look at what you guys captured and juxtapose it against that background, what's your reaction? What should we know that Donald Trump clearly doesn't know about what happened that day?
Thank you. What I want people to know what we now know. And I think that we had the luxury of being able to spend over a year plus with our team looking and scouring the footage, finding the right people, finding 6 people who just went to work that day to tell the story, and that what we stitched together from the beginning of the day to the end was one of the most violent, heartbreaking, gut-punching days of American history. And people think they know Jan 6. They don't. They don't know the scale and the violence. Everybody who was in the Capitol that day thought they were going to die. Like, there was a sense of 10,000 plus people are surrounding this building and breaking in, and it is criminal. It was violent. And I think people just saw this in pieces. They didn't quite understand the mass and the scale and the threat. We're so lucky that more people didn't die at the end of that day. And we are eternally grateful to the people that did their job that day and the next day, who serve in, like, the legislature and Congress and journalism and in law enforcement. We should be thankful the fact that law enforcement is being booed and hissed, that they actually did their job and protected the lives of the lawmakers that are now turning their back on what happened that day. It's despicable. You know, they did it. There's a code and ethic to every single person that we profile in this film about how they do their job, and thank goodness they did, because I think the outcome would have been so much worse if they hadn't.
Sean, to that point about law enforcement, here's photographer Mel D. Cole talking about the picture he took of Michael Fanone. Take a listen.
If they wanted to kill him, they would have killed him. The man pleaded for his life, told people he has kids. It's kind of crazy because if I had to put, a dollar on it, I would say everyone there is Blue Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. It didn't matter that day. I felt for him. I have a son. I thought about what it would feel like for him if some happened to me. This is another human being.
Part of what I appreciated about the doc is that you centered the voices of those who were impacted on that day, but their reflections about the crowd and who showed up and the inconsistencies around their theories of justice, Sean, are laid bare.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important for us to give a voice to the people that went through that day and what they went through, and a personal voice. I think it's really important. And then I think with the crowd there, we also did something that I think is important, is that we listened in our film, and you hear things in our film that you don't hear with the normal sound bites. And as Mel talks about, he's talking about being right next to this man pleading for his life, pleading because he has kids. You're also hearing around Mel as he's capturing this, all the different things the crowd is saying. The crowd is saying, take their guns. The crowd is saying, you know, you're going to die tonight, to police officers, with such conviction that you can hear it in their voice, that you believe it. And I think people need to take this all in as Andrew said, beginning of the day to end of the day, through the personal experiences of the 6 people that we followed, and then kind of decide what you think about the people that were in the crowd that day, and what their intentions were, and what could have happened.
What could have happened? I mean, there's a part in the film where former Metropolitan D.C. Police Chief Conti talks about a phone call that he had, that he was a part of with Mayor Bowser and whatnot, and when they were literally pleading for help from the National Guard because MPD was deployed to the Capitol. Because Chief Conti said we have to do something to help, and Capitol Police called for help. The National Guard, they're on the phone, and this call was just, we're going to play a clip from the doc, because it's still hard to believe. You wonder what Donald Trump would do if he was in office again. I mean, we know what he did on January 6th. Take a listen.
We had a phone call that was convened by myself, by the mayor of the District of Columbia, several representatives of the D.C. National Guard, the U.S. Capitol Police Chief, where he essentially was pleading for assistance from the National Guard. In response to that, whoever on the other side from the representatives from the Defense Department, the discussion then switched to talking about optics and boots on the ground and what that would look like, which, you know, in a crisis situation, I don't care what it looks like. It looks like help to me.
It took hours until the National Guard was deployed and came, until Donald Trump, until that request was approved, until Donald Trump put that video out. And when he put the video out, people finally did go home. Michael, it just really feels like that he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, that's a big part of it for me. When you step back, is what the sub story that I think you guys capture here is the other stuff that was going on in the face of all of the drama and the tragedy on the Hill. The sub story was the White House wasn't doing anything. There was no real effort to move, and I think that clip really embraces that part of it. So, Sean, when you're putting this storyline together and you're sort of tick-tocking it through, how did you capture that? How did you guys, sort of said, this is the other side of this? We're not going to necessarily show you, Donald Trump in the Roosevelt room sitting there watching television, eating a hamburger.
Yeah.
But that's what's going on. Yeah. That was the rest of the story, why the D.C. police were so animated about the lack of response from federal law enforcement at the highest level.
Yeah, I think, it was a different type of film for us. We had this huge kind of forensic timeline in our office. We were looking at all the different things playing out that day. And when we stepped back and we said, like, where's the National Guard? We're also Washingtonians, so we know. We know what happens.
You know how it works.
I've been in protests. I know what happens. I see the National Guard anytime. They're always around, helping out, doing what they're supposed to do. And we were just scratching our heads, like, and why isn't anyone talking about this? Why isn't it there? And it was actually Andrea that said, we need to really deep dive in this. And when we asked Chief Conti that, and he started talking about that, and he said, if the he basically said, if the National Guard's not here, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get everybody I can. I'm going to do my duty. The Capitol is under attack. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to get local law enforcement to come and help. And that's what they did. And a lot of people aren't talking about that. DC police fought for hours, especially in the tunnel. 4 to 5 hours they fought hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
And police officers are not trained to do that. Police officers arrest people in 10 minutes.
Right.
They're not trained to fight hand-to-hand combat like a, some
Like
kind
a
of
military.
Like a battlefield.
Battlefield, right.
You
Battlefield.
can't argue that the powers that be that had the authorization to release and deploy the Guard to help weren't aware of what was going on. The entire world was watching what was going on. And I think that's what is so upsetting, is that why wait that long? And that's what we felt was so important. And once we realized how soon they were asked and how many hours of this, everybody seeing the horrific violence going down, this all could have been stopped. And you're watching it in real time as the violence increases and it spins out.
And it took them 15 minutes to get there.
Once
they were deployed. 15 minutes.
Andrea Nix and Sean Fine, fine work, good work. Thank you very much.